And we're kicking off today with Raw, as Cody Rhodes kicked off the show and expressed interest in challenging for the World Heavyweight Championship. Rhodes said that after defeating Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, he could defeat anyone, including Seth Rollins, which brought up the reigning champion. Before the two could get to blows, though, the Judgment Day interrupted, and after some words, Finn Balor blindsided Rollins, starting a brawl that would see Sami Zayn arrive to aid the babyfaces. A six-man tag was set for the main event, but during the show, JD McDonough, who has been teased as a Judgment Day member, attacked Zayn, a spot that reports confirmed had been planned all day. Shinsuke Nakamura, who beat Bronson Reed earlier on Raw, then decided to step up and replace Zayn in the match, and in the main event, Rollins, Rhodes, and the King of Strong Style stood tall. During the celebration, though, Nakamura would lay out Rollins with a Kinshasa, stunning Rhodes and confirming the heel turn for the Japanese star that has been teased for weeks. It's clear that WWE is building Nakamura up as Rollins' next opponent, with a match presumably at next month's Payback Premium Live event in Pittsburgh. A former NXT US Intercontinental and Tag Champion, Nakamura has never held a world title on the main roster, and will that all change next month? Only time will tell. It was just a few weeks ago that Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green captured the women's tag team titles, the first taste of gold for either woman in the company. WWE had reportedly hoped that their reign would stabilize the titles, which have been vacated multiple times due to injuries or suspensions, but the curse of the women's tag gold has struck again. TMZ were the first to report that Deville suffered a torn ACL during a recent tag match against Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair, and that the former MMA fighter will require surgery this week. TMZ's report was later confirmed by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, and Deville would confirm the reports herself in an emotional video on Twitter. In her statement, Deville joked that the tag titles are cursed, before adding that this situation is truly bitter, as this is the last way she wanted her 20-day reign with the gold to end. No injury comes at a good time, but Deville remained optimistic, saying she plans to use this setback to motivate herself and will be back sooner rather than later. Deville may be optimistic about a recovery time, but unfortunately torn ACLs are a lengthy recovery process, as Dakota Kai will miss the rest of 2023 after suffering a torn ACL in May. If Deville's situation is the same, it means she'll be out for at least 7 months, putting her return around March of next year, though it could last longer than that. PW Insider added that there is a ton of sympathy backstage in WWE over Deville's injury, as she has proven herself to be a team player, and many are sad to see her first title reign end this way. WWE is said to already have a plan for the women's tag titles, as during her video statement, Deville mentioned that this is indeed the end of her reign as champion. This is a truly heartbreaking injury, especially given all Deville has been through in WWE to become a champion, and we're sending her the very best as she recovers from this setback. Back to Raw, and with their feud with the Alpha Academy over, the Viking Raiders issued an open challenge, which was accepted by none other than The New Day. In the hours before Raw, Fightful Selected learned that both Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods were backstage, but that didn't stop the Minneapolis crowd from being thrilled to see them back. Kofi, who has been out with an ankle injury for 5 months, didn't miss a beat, and in the closing moments he took out Eric, allowing Xavier Woods to get the pin over Ivar. The New Day announced their return to the tag team division backstage on Raw in an interview with the new correspondent Jackie Redmond, but it will be a while before they challenge for the title gold. With Kevin Owens suffering a legitimate injury that caused him to miss SummerSlam, the undisputed WWE tag team titles won't be defended for a while on TV. It's not just Owens that is worse for wear, as his tag team partner Sami Zayn had a swollen elbow on Raw after being taken out by JD McDonough, who was looking to get in the good graces of the Judgment Day. Nevertheless, it's great to see Kofi and Woods back on TV, and while Big E's future in the ring remains uncertain, the New Day will be entertaining fans on Raw for a long time to come. At SummerSlam, Cody Rhodes defeated Brock Lesnar in the third match between the two, bringing an end to their feud. After the match, the pair shook hands in a sign of respect between the two athletes, but Cody was expecting a much different response from the Beast incarnate. While speaking with Sports Illustrated, Rhodes talked about his match with Brock and said the post-match spot caught him off guard as he expected a much more violent response from Lesnar. He said, "As soon as I saw him taking his gloves off, I sincerely thought he was going to start swinging. Then we went head-to-head, and it felt like we were a millisecond away from starting up again, so I didn't anticipate that handshake coming. When I saw his hand, I was grateful. That's not something he does. Again, this run has consistently surprised me. The torch isn't passed. You have to take it." As Triple H explained on the post-SummerSlam press conference, the spot between Rhodes and Lesnar after the match was completely unplanned, so Cody had no idea what Brock was going to do. Given that Lesnar didn't attack Rhodes, SummerSlam was indeed the end of their feud, and we'll have to wait and see what's in store for both men after this show of respect in Ford Field. At SummerSlam, Roman Reigns emerged victorious over his cousin in tribal combat, and in doing so, the head of the table achieved a huge personal milestone. As pointed out by WrestleOps, SummerSlam marked Reigns' longest singles premium live event match, clocking in at over 36 minutes as the Tribal Chief continues to break new ground in his impressive career. SummerSlam went off the air with Roman Reigns standing tall, this time over his cousin Jey, thanks to the shocking betrayal of Jey's brother Jimmy Uso. There's a lot of questions about the Bloodline right now, and fans will have their questions answered soon enough, as Reigns will be on this Friday's episode of SmackDown. More specifically, WWE will hold a Hail to the Chief segment on SmackDown, acknowledging Reigns' continued dominance, and the Bloodline story has caught the attention of a non-WWE star. On Twitter, MLW's Jacob Fatu, who is part of the Anoa'i family, tweeted, "Bottom of the third inning," the same thing Paul Heyman said on the SummerSlam press conference to explain that the Bloodline is nowhere close to being finished. WWE has shown interest in Fatu in the past, with the belief that he would jump straight to the main roster if signed, but time will tell if that ever happens. More from Raw, as the first match of the night was an epic fatal four-way between Tommaso Ciampa, Matt Riddle, Ricochet, and Chad Gable to decide the next challenger to Gunther. The match was full of epic spots, including Ricochet being on fire at selling, and Ciampa pulling a Pete Dunne by twisting the toes of Riddle. In the end, though, it was Gable who got the win, fulfilling a promise made on last week's Raw that he'd be waiting for the Intercontinental Champion after SummerSlam. Gable was able to get the win in his hometown and celebrated after the match with his son, who was donned in a matching singlet as his #1 contender father. Although some may think the chants in his honor during tonight's episode of Raw were primarily due to him being in his hometown, Gable has been seriously building momentum with fans, especially his recent work with Maxine Dupree and Alpha Academy. So why did Gable get the win, especially as WWE typically has superstars lose in their hometown? Well, Gunther vs. Gable will be a story of David and Goliath. Despite his in-ring proficiency, Gable will be seen as the underdog in this match given his smaller stature, but there is always the hope that he can succeed against the odds given his skills. Gunther's in-ring skills also cannot be denied, as he has continued to be a hit with fans and is mere weeks away from surpassing the Honky Tonk Man's legendary reign. If Gunther vs. Gable is planned for Payback, then it'll likely be the last chance for someone to prevent the Austrian from breaking the record. And are you excited for Gunther vs. Gable? Sound off in the comments. Now, this year has seen Trish Stratus make her return to WWE in-ring competition, and has had more matches in the past few months than we've seen from her in years. On next week's Raw, Stratus will face Becky Lynch, and according to comments from The Man, this will likely mark the end of Trish's return. During Raw, Lynch laid into Trish's ally Zoe Stark, saying the NXT call-up could be challenging for championships, but is instead playing second fiddle to someone who's not even going to be here after next week. WWE wouldn't have Lynch go out and tease the end of Stratus's run if it wasn't happening, and with next week's Raw in Trish's native Canada, it seems there's no better place for her recent run with WWE to come to an end. At SummerSlam, Ronda Rousey lost to Shayna Baszler in the first ever MMA Rules match, and what is believed to be the last match for the former Raw Women's Champion. It was reported in the days prior to SummerSlam that Rousey would be wrapping up her time with the company, and now there is another sign that she is indeed gone for good. When Ringside News asked around about Rousey's status, a source in creative said that no plans for her are being made at this time. When a member of the creative team asked higher-ups about Rousey's status with the company, they were told that she is unavailable, but no other information was given than that. Rousey has done her part to distance herself from WWE, stating on Instagram that Baszler was the reason she got into wrestling, and now she has no reason to stay. Rousey didn't appear on last night's Raw, which isn't surprising given these reports, and while she may return to WWE one day, for now, there are absolutely zero plans for the baddest woman on the planet. But what do you think of all this? Are you happy to see Rousey leave WWE? And do you think she could be back one day? Let us know in the comments. In 2021, WWE parted ways with Nia Jax, which came as a shock to many, given that the Irresistible Force had been one of the most consistently featured stars on TV. When Jax appeared during this year's Women's Royal Rumble, many thought she'd signed a new deal, and though that wasn't the case, it may be true now. As PW Insider reports, there's been some rumblings that Jax is returning to WWE and soon. As they wrote prior to last night's episode of Raw, there were some rumblings over the last few days of a potential Nia Jax return within the company. We have not heard that she is at Raw, but at least a few different sources noted that they heard her name being mentioned as of late. Jax made a one-night return at the 2023 Royal Rumble. We'll update if we hear anything additional. Jax didn't appear on Raw, and the report did not specify as to when she'll be back, if a deal has been reached at all. Jax is a former Raw Women's Champion and Women's Tag Team Champion, but had a reputation among fans for injuring opponents, which led to fans being very much against her during her first WWE run. The Irresistible Force has had just one match since her release, that being the Rumble, and what do you think of her reported return given Nia's reputation? Sound off in the comments. We mentioned earlier that Chad Gable has his eyes on Gunther and the Intercontinental Championship, but it appears that Maxine Dupri has her eyes on another Imperium member. After Gable's win, Dupri was backstage with Imperium and slapped Ludwig Kaiser for his comments on Alpha Academy, setting up a match between the German superstar and Otis. Even when the two men were in the ring, it was clear that Kaiser's attention was at ringside at Maxine Dupri, and could this be the spark of a love triangle between Otis, Dupri, and Kaiser? If so, we imagine Gunther won't be happy about this at all, as he'll likely take issue with Kaiser's emotions distracting him from his work in the ring. It is clear that Alpha Academy and Imperium are now set for a lengthy feud, and we'll just have to see if romance indeed blossoms between Dupri and Kaiser in a modern-day Romeo and Juliet tale. And we're ending today with LA Knight, and after his win at SummerSlam, the popular star took another major step on Raw, kicking off a feud with two-time WWE Grand Slam champion, The Miz. Miz called Knight an Attitude Era fanboy, and Knight says that he has been making himself a dangerous man, and feuding with a veteran like The Miz certainly bodes well for LA Knight. This is the latest right move for Knight, and as WrestleOps noted, WWE's tweet of Knight's victory at SummerSlam was the most reacted to SummerSlam tweet, even beating every single post related to the Tribal Combat main event. SummerSlam 2023 was full of major moments, including the shocking return and betrayal by Jimmy Uso, but on social media, nothing can stand up to LA Knight.